Hey everyone, how's it going? Coming to y'all with another knife comparison. This time it's between the Sencut Scepter and the Kizer Vanguard Infinity. Probably just going to say the Kizer Infinity throughout the course of the video because it just rolls off the tongue a little bit better. So the reason I'm comparing these two knives, and the reason I compare any knives in this channel, is because I feel that they are very similar in design and usage. They're similar in materials, they're similar in price point, and they may be competing for the same slot in your collection as well as for the same dollar that you're looking to spend. So, if you're looking for a 3-inch blade flipper deployed everyday carry knife and you have a price range of, 40 to 60 bucks, both of these knives are going to enter your radar. And that's why I'm comparing them today. So the Sencut Scepter and the Kizer Infinity. Let's go ahead and start by talking about the blades. Looking at the Sencut first, we have a 3-inch drop point design made out of 9CR 18 MOV. Maybe I can get that stamp to show up. It's a little hard. There you go. And it features a very high flat grind, almost full flat grind. Now, 9CR 18 MOV is a Chinese equivalent of 440B. Many mistake it for Chinese 440C, and it's understandable why, because Chinese 440C is known as 9CR 18MO. It's a very similar naming scheme. However, the steels are distinctly different from each other. Being equivalent to 440B means this is going to have edge retention and performance above the likes of AUS 8, but below the likes of AUS 10. So just think of it that way. Think of it like an AUS 9, if you will. It's better than AUS 8, it's just not as good as AUS 10. It's better than 440A, but it's not as good as 440B. Overall, it's a great steel, though. In my own testing with this knife, it held up, decently after 150 passes through cardboard, where I compared this against the Damascus Civivi Elementum. And while the Sencut did have the lowest performance of the bunch, I'm going to be completely honest, it still did have a somewhat serviceable edge after all that cutting. Rust resistance on 9CR 18 MOV is actually pretty damn good, and I've never had a 9CR 18 blade ever develop any rust on me, this one being no exception. They're extremely easy to sharpen, and they take a wicked fine edge. Honestly, I think the steel is pretty outstanding for the price you're paying. I love the stonewashed finish on this blade as well, if I can get it to focus. I always thought stonewashing was a beautiful touch, and I remember about 8 or 10 years ago when stonewashing was reserved for premium knives. So, really cool to see it here on a very affordable folding knife. This thing slices incredibly well. It does have a fairly nice tip, if I can get that to focus, there you go. And it does penetrate clamshell packaging extremely well. Great blade for EDC. Now, looking at the Kizer Infinity's blade, we can see it's very similar in size, but definitely a different shape. I mean, there's similarities between the two, right? But this is a bit of a different shape. So this is a 2.9-inch N690 blade. If I can, well, my camera's not wanting to focus today. There you go. So 2.9-inch N690 blade. It's a leaf design, kind of a Celtic leaf design, and it is full flat ground. Now, N690 is a bolder steel, and it is honestly a fantastic steel for the money. Many comparisons have been thrown around over the years. Some have compared it against 440C, although its performance is actually slightly better than 440C if we're being honest. It's been compared against 154CM. That's a closer comparison. It's been compared against VG10, which in my experience, it performs better than VG10. Honestly, what I can tell you is it's a fantastic steel, especially at this price point. It takes a super fine edge. It holds that edge very well. Again, 150 passes through cardboard. This still had a serviceable edge afterwards, and even more so than that one did, which is very impressive considering how rough cardboard can be on your blade. Sharpens readily, has great rust resistance, especially in this case with that black finish. This is a hell of a slicing blade, and I mean, it cleaved through cardboard like it was no one's business. It had absolutely no issues doing so. The tip, also relatively fine. Not quite as fine as the Sencuts, but still very, very sharp, and has no difficulty penetrating clamshell packaging, bubble mailers, or whatever your EDC is going to throw your way. So, which one of these two knives has the better blade? Well, for me, I don't usually like to say one is strictly better than the other, but in this particular case, it is a slam dunk for the Kizer. This is a great blade. It really is. But this outperformed it in practically every way. It sharpened it just as easily. It held its edge a little bit better. It slices just a tiny bit better. This is amazing. This is outstanding. The only point to give this to the Civivi, or the Sencut, is the slightly finer tip on it. So, honestly, the blades are very comparable, but I would give a slight edge towards the Kizer, because I do feel like it performs just a little bit better. Deployment and lockup, I'm going to go ahead and close both of these knives. They are both flipper design knives, but the Sencut does also have the option of thumb studs. There's the design there. And I actually prefer to use the thumb studs on the Sencut because I feel like it's a faster deployment. The flipper tab's a little small. If I bring this in compared to the Kizer, you'll see what I mean. See that? Little small. It does have jimping, so it is easy to get a grip on it, but you may notice it deploys just a bit slower using that flipper as compared to the thumb studs. So that said, it is riding on a ball bearing system in that pivot point. It comes out super smooth. It locks up incredibly solid. There is no blade play on this. We could easily adjust the pivot on either side if it needed it, which also helps us adjust centering. Locking mechanism is a liner lock, and there is your engagement on that liner lock, which, by the way, is nicely jimped, so it's very easy to get a grip on, which, you know, it kind of needs to be because it's not protruding too large from that handle scale, and I'm actually grateful for that. Looking at the Kizer, oh boy. So flipper design, this thing is wicked fast, and look at this. Look at how drop shut, if I can get it past that bearing, or that detent. So incredibly smooth. That is just an unbelievable drop shut action. Also has a ball bearing system in its pivot point, comes out fast, locks up tight, no wiggle, and just like before, we can adjust it at the pivot point if it developed any, only on one side though. It is a liner lock, and there is your engagement on that liner lock, nice and early. However, it does not have a jimped liner, so instead they cut out or milled out a section of the handle scale for easier access to that liner lock. However, I don't mind this choice because it still makes the liner very easy to disengage. Also, the flipper is, if I didn't mention it, nicely jimped, so it's easy to get a grip on. However, because of the black coating, this one is a little slicker than the Sencut's flipper. So, deployment and lockup on both knives is fantastic. They're both incredibly smooth. I didn't show the action on the Sencut. You can see it does have nice, smooth, gliding drop shut action. It's just nowhere near the level of the Kizer. So, I honestly think they're both more than adequate. They're both incredibly solid. But again, if I have to give points, which I don't usually like doing, I do feel like the Kizer's a bit better in the deployment area. The only thing I like better about the Sencut, however, to be completely fair, is I like the option of having thumb studs. Flipper designs are great, but having more options is always nice, and so there is that. So it really comes down to a pick it for yourself kind of situation. Handles on here, looking at a 3.9-inch handle on the Sencut Scepter made out of your choice of either micarta or G10, available in a wide variety of colors. I went with brown micarta, and it's got a nice texture on it. The handle is pretty ergonomic, though admittedly I do get a small hot spot from that loop over deep carry clip, which is a common theme I've noticed on many knives. We also have a finger choil so we can choke up for finer control of the blade, and that is a nice feature that is not present on the Kizer. Moving on to the Kizer, we have a 4-inch handle made out of your choice of either micarta or G10, yet again. Only 3 varieties on this one. You either get black micarta with a black blade and a back flipper, you get red micarta with a satin blade and a front flipper, or you get a black and white G10 handle with a satin blade and a front flipper. So those are your options on the Kizer. That said, this micarta is very nice and also provides good grip. It's a very attractive micarta that I like a lot. Ergonomically, this thing fits in the hand really well, but I also get a small hot spot from its loop over deep carry clip, which is why I said it's a common theme. I've never liked these loop over clips personally, but many people do. And in these instances, they do cause a small hot spot. Not by much, though. We don't have a finger choil to choke up on, so you can't really get your finger above here for control, but we do have some jimping on the back of the spine. It is notch cut jimping, and it's okay. It's not amazing, it's not bad. Probably more effective on the satin finish versions of the blade as opposed to this coated one. So all things considered, they're both incredibly ergonomic knives, but the finger choil on this may make it just ever so slightly more ergonomic depending on what you're using your knife for. If you need fine control, the Sencut's going to provide that for you, while the Kizer is not. Looking inside the knives, we can see that we have skeletonized or milled stainless steel liners on the Kizer, and if we look into the Sencut, we're going to see the same. very nicely lightened. And that's going to bring us down to the weight, which on the Sencut is a remarkable 2.4 ounces. On the Kizer, 3 ounces. So they're both incredibly light knives, but if I'm being honest, it's obviously even lighter in the case of the Sencut over the Kizer. Now, I forgot to grab my little pocket so I could show you guys how these knives carry, but I'll find something quickly to make do with. I'll bring in this piece of paper. So let's go ahead and fold these knives up, and I'll show you how the knives carry in pocket. Okay, we got the Kizer on the right, and we have the Sencut on the left. You can see they're both carrying very deeply, slightly deeper on the Sencut, but we'd be splitting hairs if we really gave a point based on that tiny amount exposed from the pocket. The pocket clip itself, like I mentioned, it's a loop over deep carry clip mounted with 2 screws. It is very stout, and you can see how it rides on the pocket here. Slightly flared up on the end there, so there is some risk of it possibly snagging on a seat belt or a car door, though it's honestly not such a drastic flare that I think you have to worry about it. The gap between the handle scales and the pocket clip on this section, however, are a double-edged sword, because this is going to allow it to easily accommodate thicker fabric pants, but it's also going to contribute a little bit more to that hot spot. On the Kizer, also very strong and stout. We can see the profile of the clip. It's perfectly flattened towards the end. This is not going to snag on anything, which I love. And again, we have enough clearance there to accommodate thicker fabric. One point to the Sencut over the Kizer, however, is that the clip is reversible on the Sencut. You can see the holes tapboard on this side. It's not on the Kizer, so if you're a lefty, the Sencut is the more lefty-friendly knife than the Kizer. Additionally, we have a lanyard hole on the Sencut. Now, mine has a small defect, which I still haven't cleared up myself yet, because I think it's funny, where you can see a bit of the micarta wasn't punched out there on its lanyard hole, but that's a factory issue. It's easy enough to fix. I could literally just pop a pen in there and knock that out. But we could easily fit some paracord through there to give us a lanyard to help extract the knife. We don't have any such feature on the Kizer, not unless we want to try to, rig some paracord around that backspacer, in which case we now had to worry about our tip running into it. Forgot to mention centering on the knives. Basically perfect on both of them. I don't see any centering issues on either knife. These things are really beautifully centered and identical as far as I'm concerned in that department. Price points, I haven't mentioned this yet. So the Sencut Scepter is an astonishing $38, which is a hell of a bargain for the quality of knife you're getting. I mean, this thing is a fantastic blade. The Kizer is $60. And honestly, I still feel like $60 is a very good deal for what you're getting. This is a fantastic knife. But we can't ignore the fact that it's almost double the cost of the Sencut. I mean, they're in that same general price range, that $40 to $60 price range. This being on the lower end of that, this being on the higher end of that. So I still feel like they're competing for the same crowd, the same market, the same money. However, it's hard to deny that, you are paying twice as much or almost twice as much for the Kizer than you are for the Sencut, especially since the Sencuts go on sale frequently. And I see them constantly hitting $30 price points. I don't see the Kizer going on sale pretty much ever. So these are things to consider. I love both knives, and I'm not saying that the Kizer is overpriced. It's very well priced. It's just that the Sencut is so aggressively priced that it has a very good argument for going for it instead, possibly, because you could almost get 2 of them. Am I telling you to go for this over this? No, I'm not. They both have their strengths, they both have their weaknesses, and if I'm being completely honest, I feel like the Kizer may have slightly more strengths than the Sencut does. However, you may feel the strengths of the Kizer aren't worth that additional price tag. Maybe you feel like they are. It really comes down to, to your own personal preference and what you are doing with your knives. So, I hope this video was informative. I hope it helped you make a decision on which knife to buy for your money. If you have the money to buy both, buy both. I did, and I don't regret it, but if you have to choose one, I hope this helped you make that choice. Hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and until next time, peace and take care.